Let's see. Might be over. Like, I don't know if our internet can really handle what I'm doing here. Like, we should probably get the really fastest internet there is. If we're gonna do this, but really, we have to be. What are the other things we need to get done? Keep them. You're gonna keep them in mind, so we get shit done that we need to do. Okay?
Yes.
And
we were productive today.
I know, but we're gonna keep reading this, and I want us to listen to the other thing.
You should. How long is
yoga? I'm going to yoga one time today for sure, but I can go to the 6:45 to 8. I'm okay with that. Okay. Let me just tell these guys. I gotta change my name for Chung Jewish boy. It's weird. Okay.
Here.
You can come to the yoga. Do it for a month for $60. $2 a day and come and make it worth it.
But I do the free week first to see what classes they have.
Well, you
I
can
want
do
to
that.
join a climbing gym.
You should definitely do that. That'd be a great place to meet good people, I think. I think climbing gym, you find your peeps. Some of them here. Are you doing this
Well, I
or
am
me?
leaving on the 15th. The job.
No, you're not. You are. Oh, okay, fine. Well, let's do good stuff till the 15th. Okay.
I mean, that's like almost 3 weeks. But
All
it's
right.
not a full month, so I don't want to do anything. But
No,
I can
that's
do a
like-
free week of this yoga place.
Here, why don't we do?
Right?
Hmm?
The one you're talking about, couldn't I do the free week there?
Yeah, yoga works. You can do a free. You can do a free week at yoga works for sure.
Yeah.
Or you can do like 2 weeks for $25 they used to do. I don't know if they're still doing that. Okay, so this is called "If You're So Smart." Oh man. Great. Grace, can you send me the photos of my hair?
I sent them to Jared.
He sent to me too.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is called
My phone is dying.
Wait, look at this. Oh my god, this is so. Okay, so this is called "If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Saving the World?"
Don't read this one yet, because I have to charge my phone.
Okay, go do that, and then I'm gonna check it. I'm gonna look first.
Well, actually, if you read it and record it, I can listen to it later. How about that?
Wait, let's keep. Fine, go ahead, do whatever. Keep going. Your Rainforest Mind: A Guide to the Well-Being of Gifted Adults and Youth by Paula Prober, licensed psychotherapist. Chapter 2. If you're so smart, why aren't you saving the world? Compassion hurts. When you feel connected to everything, You also feel responsible for everything, and you cannot turn away. Your destiny is bound with the destinies of others. You must either learn to carry the universe or be crushed by it. You must grow strong enough to love the world, yet empty enough to sit down at the same table with its worst horrors. To seek enlightenment is to seek annihilation, rebirth, and the taking up of burdens. You must become prepared to touch and be touched by everything in heaven and hell. By Andrew Boyd. What do you think, Grace? Got any thoughts yet? Okay, I'm going to keep going. Connected to everything. In her counseling practice, people like us not only are troubled by our own personal psychological issues and traumas, but also deeply concerned about the state of the world and the suffering of others, including plants and animals and ecosystems. We can have an early awareness of environmental and social justice issues and can have intense desire to take action. In The Gifted Adult, Mary Elaine Jacobson observes the following. Perceptivity is often associated with issues of unfairness, a topic that tends to bring on outrage in many people like us. Intense reactions to inequity and cruelty are normal. Oftentimes, the client reveals a feeling of being tugged toward an unclear legacy or to advocate for change as though it were a call to duty. Charles Eisenstein, political activist and author of Sacred Economics, experiences it this way. I have often encountered a deep anguish and a helplessness born. How do you do that? Yeah. This guy goes, I want to take action on that bulge.
Good one.
Good one. Love it. Yes. Yeah. Okay. I have often encountered a deep anguish and helplessness born out of the ubiquity of the world-devouring machine and of the near impossibility of avoiding participation in it. You can shut the door. Or you want me to do it? I'll do it.
It doesn't matter.
It's cold. Existential depression can result when you feel powerless and overwhelmed by socio-political issues and events, and when you do not know how you can contribute adequately. At an early age, you may have asked the big questions like, why am I here? Or what gives life meaning? Or even, why are humans so cruel? Now, you may feel great frustrations and guilt as you go about your own busy life, and you are not finding the cure for Alzheimer's or single-handedly ending global warming. And if you received early messages about how smart or special you are, you may put excessive pressure on yourself to achieve at the highest levels. You experience ongoing frustration with your inability to measure up. You may feel guilt because you were told that you have great potential but feel you are not using it. Or you may feel guilt because you feel responsible for all of the suffering on the planet. Or because you live a privileged life. Or because you want to feed the hungry person with the sign on the corner, but you do not. Or you have not won a Nobel Prize. And when you talk with people about this guilt and existential depression, you hear, you're too idealistic, get real, or you worry too much. Or worse yet, you may be asked, if you're so smart, why aren't you doing something important? Needless to say, these responses are not very helpful. The psychologist Patricia Gatto Walden did research that revealed that profoundly gifted students in middle school and high school were determined to build lives of meaning, making significant contributions to society. A group of gifted women whom she studied expressed similar needs, along with guilt and frustration when family responsibilities or the mundane world called for their attention. One of the teenage clients asked, "How do I understand the world? What's the point of life?" When she responded with a question about her personal search for purpose, she heard the impatience in the girl's voice when she said, "It's not just about me." Clearly, she had a larger question in mind, one that the counselor was unprepared to answer. Luckily, people with minds like us are not looking for our therapists or other people to give us the answers. Many times we just are trying to dive into the mystery together and swim around in the questions. Hope and idealism. Interestingly, existential depression can be coupled with idealism. That's me. Even as they're aware of the great suffering on the planet, many people like me, like us, continue to hold a sense of hope, gratitude, and appreciation for the beauty and for the beauty and preciousness, funny, of life. They're often accused of naivete and, when they are younger, immaturity. She recalls teenage clients of hers refusing to be cynical or hang out at the mall or on social media with the cool kids, not due to some missing maturity, but due to a maturity beyond their years. People like us often have an unusual sense that human potential is much greater than we imagine. Eisenstein described it as a heart knowledge of our native radiance, a very sensitive, intellectual, and dreamy child. Eisenstein defends his idealism in his article, Naivete and the Light in Their Eyes. Oh, that sounds great. He says that some of his readers assume that he cannot really know the magnitude of the present environmental crisis and still be optimistic. But he may, in fact, be a visionary tuned into something that the cynics cannot see. And so he holds a positive view of future possibilities. Dude, I'm literally on Dude's Nude right now and Chatterbait and YouTube, but no one's really watching me on Dude's Nude because I'm not really nude. Let's see, just out of curiosity. Okay, total shtick. Okay, so the people that she's known that are like us with these sort of rainforest minds have been pretty consistently felt responsible for creating a better world. There's a psychotherapist named Bill Plotkin who wrote a book called Soulcraft and other books about the healing power of the natural world. And he describes his perspective this way: the gift you carry for others is not an attempt to save the world, but to fully belong to it. It's not possible to save the world by trying to save it. You need to find what is genuinely yours to offer to the world before you can make it a better place. Discovering your unique gift to bring to your community is your greatest opportunity and challenge. The offering of that gift, your true self, is the most you can do to love and serve the world. And it is all the world needs. So this woman is 52, Gwen. She comes into counseling because she had plunged into depression after completing her PhD. She said she wanted to find the best way to make an impact on society, but was unsure how to proceed. Her research, which combined art, the social sciences, and world history all through the feminist perspective, made her acutely aware of the enormous suffering of women around the world. She grappled with how to live with a consciousness of the extent of the harm and the pervasiveness of white privilege. Hello, Jared. Additionally, she wondered what the right thing to do was. What would have the greatest positive impact? How could she be happy when so many others were in pain? How could she respond to people who were told her to lighten up or don't make waves? In counseling, she had a safe place to feel her despair, tap into her intuition, and find her creative, authentic path. She learned that many people with rainforest minds experience existential depression, the condition she was struggling with when she began seeing the therapist. She felt reassured learning that a lot of people like her naturally possess high levels of morality and justice concerns. She came to a subsequent quest session in great distress. She had just seen the documentary Gasland, which described fracking,
Can you turn that off?
the practice in which natural gas is extracted from shale rock deep underground. She expressed her serious concerns for the many people, creatures, and plants living in surrounding communities that, according to the documentary, were being poisoned by fracking. She could not just ignore this information. She was feeling grief for the individuals already made ill and for the future of our country's land, water, and air. So they talked about the activist organization. Fracking was just one of numerous activities that disturbed her. She deeply felt the suffering of humans, animals, and plants. At times, she felt nearly paralyzed by despair. It can be hard to be that sensitive and aware. But this considerable sensitivity and high awareness seems to be the reality of people like us. As Andrew Boyd observed at the beginning of this chapter, when you feel connected to everything, you feel responsible for everything, and it hurts. Quiet down, slow down. She mentioned that as a child, she talked to redwood trees. She felt they were sacred beings. She also felt that they, like other trees or animals, would speak to her sometimes. Like this other lady, Janice, that we read about, others typically found her too sensitive or too much and advised her not to take everything so seriously. For most of her life, she had not been identified as gifted. Through counseling, she was trying to reconnect to her authenticity as a way to find her true work in the world and to ease the loneliness she had felt all her life. She had a mixed response to her rainforest-minded traits. On one hand, she was relieved. At the same time, she felt discouraged that she might continue to feel deeply lonely if she could not find others whom she could truly relate to and collaborate with. In later counseling sessions, it became apparent that growing up, she'd been her family's scapegoat. Initially, she said her childhood had been fine, but when she described her parents in more detail, it became clear that from an early age, they had depended on her for emotional support. Gwen was able to see that she had experienced much shame in her family around both her physical appearance and her multiple talents. Her family seemed to think that she was not pretty enough and not feminine enough. She had loved drawing, painting, and writing poetry, but was greeted with criticism instead of encouragement. She internalized the parental messages that she was not enough in some ways while too much in others. As a result, she had stopped creating visual art and poetry, cut off her spiritual connection to nature, and did not recognize the depth of her intellect. The therapist has seen many other cases where gifted young children become the support for their parents if the family is either dysfunctional or abusive. Often, the rainforest mind person is capable of handling more than other children their age. This premature burden of parental support can set the child up later to feel overly responsible for others. She then feels frightened and like a failure if she does not always know the answers. Even in the absence of abuse in a family, the rainforest mind whose parents depended on them too much can put pressure on themselves to always excel and will feel crushed if they do not measure up. Inconsequential joy. In spite of her enormous personal and collective grief, Gwen also felt gratitude. I'm so utterly grateful for where I live, what and who I see out my windows, because the beauty, the daily astonishing wonder of all these lovely beings, all this amazing, diverse, gorgeous life does help fill the hollows in my soul that grief and despair carve out. Thank goodness for all the beauty, wonder, and daily quiet radiance. The carving seems pretty relentless at times. Despite the hollows, Gwen told me that the small, seemingly inconsequential moments could bring her great joy. Just that week, she was overwhelmed by how the colors of the walls in her bedroom changed when the sky was clear and the afternoon light reflected off the green birch leaves into the space. She felt she was basking in beauty. Before knowing about her rainforest mind, she might have hidden this experience in embarrassment. Now she could celebrate the awareness that brought her such an intense experience, even if others might misinterpret her passion. And by the way, I actually do think this is why Jared and I both find ourselves in sexual situations, because it's a place where having passion and intensity and energy is not seen as too much. But on the contrary, many people can't even tap into it and are just glad to be like actually having that.
Yeah, I mean, like I actually know
Right, exactly. Like, do you realize how many guys are just going boop, boop, boop? It's like crazy. At the next session, this Gwen reported that she felt ready to complete this round of counseling. She'd connected with an agent to look at her book proposal and was excitedly writing chapter titles. She had signed up for a writers' conference to make more contacts with agents and planned to attend a professional conference where several prominent researchers were speaking. She also joined a Toastmasters group in anticipation of her future role presenting to the public. You know Ben is in that?
it's fine.
Did you say Ben and Flo?
No, it's flat.
No, I wanted to say Ben Geishaus.
When I, L'chaim at Beit Shuba, like in-house Agnes, I told my story once, the first one, like short chair. And then this guy that like helps out a lot of dudes at Beit Shuba, whatever, and like sort of like sponsors, kind of like whatever. He was like 80 years old, but he sat me down and talked to me for like a while. It's like I used to be in porn and blah. I was like, oh my god, I think I've seen this guy like in a porn that was made like 20 years ago when he was like still like in his 50s or whatever, But yeah, he was a funny dude. Very honest.
And he invited you to Toastmasters?
Well, and he told me about Toastmasters because basically he was like, yeah, like you're a good speaker. Like he's like, two things that you did that you should never do is you leaned on the podium and just avoid any use of or
and like and
stuff like that. But like also, it was like, even just like through our conversation, he was like,
lean on the podium.
Well, actually, technically, that's the lectern, because podium comes from the root like podiatry, meaning feet. The podium is the little stage on which one stands. Very often misused for the word lectern from lecta, meaning to read, which is the thing that you put the book. Yeah.
Anyway,
sorry, that's my like one douchey thing about podiums.
Yeah, it's the kind of like useless information I like to know.
Rainforest mind. Rainforest mind.
Did you know that the Eiffel Tower
Just
shrinks 6 inches in the winter?
Interesting. I believe it.
You know my dick shrinks 6 inches in the winter.
It was just like the fact that like I maintained eye contact.
Right.
Yeah, just two of us sitting at the table, and he was clearly trying to look intently into my eyes to communicate something to me. Because there were times where I feel like he probably was feeling it, almost just to see if I would, because he's like probably like aware of like, yeah, I'm 80 and like, ew, look, like who would ever want to fuck me now? Like I used to be important or whatever. Like I think he probably understood how hilarious it is. Giant dog lead.
Jared, did you see that I shaved my chest?
Yeah, part of it.
Oh, I'm not like looking for a big reaction. I was just pointing it out. Okay, get this. Jared, should we go to an open mic or something tonight? Or comedy or something? Should we do something with you so you don't just stay here and do drugs and do whatever? What? Do you sleep yet? Okay. Some months later, she heard from Gwen. They had another set of sessions. It's not unusual for people with rainforest minds to examine their inner worlds in an ongoing way throughout their lives. This time, she was working on understanding the shame she felt in her childhood family, and how it had affected her marriages, her health, and her self-esteem. During this period, she expressed a deeper layer of personal grief. She had come to wonder if she would ever truly love her authentic self. She cried as the pain washed over her. She had always been a caretaker of others and wondered whether she could allow herself some healthy selfishness. She left that session with a list of suggestions and reminders to build a self-care practice. The next meeting, she brought in a collage that she had made, melding Okay, blah, 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 blah. In time, I should read this part. At their next meeting, she brought in a collage that she had made, melding beautiful blues, purples, greens, images of oceans and trees. She had intuitively expressed her authenticity. She recognized herself as a weaver, taking many strands from many disciplines and creating an extraordinary tapestry. I love that. In time, Gwen learned to hold herself in the same esteem that she held others. She realized that her capacity for joy drove as deep as her grief. She came to know that her idealism and intelligence could wield the kind of impact that she dreamed of. She understood her rainforest mind. Perhaps we gifted folk are being hollowed out a bit emotionally, consciously, psychically, so that it is easier for the currents of universal love and delight to lift us up, to help us be aloft and nimble, just as the hollow bones and feathers enable birds the means to fly. She brought her rainforest intelligence into the world, and she flew.